to get your insight. We now move on once again. Bangladesh's interim leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus has called on the international community to help end the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya minority in neighbouring Myanmar. Speaking at an aid conference in Cox's Bazar, Yunus highlighted the immense burden Bangladesh carries, hosting 1.3 million Rohingya refugees, the largest refugee population in the world. Most fled Myanmar following a military crackdown in 2017. Yunus stressed that Bangladesh cannot shoulder the responsibility alone. He said that it is not only Bangladesh's duty, but also the responsibility of the international community to share the burden of the Rohingya crisis. He also highlighted the strain on Bangladesh, which is still recovering from the August 2024 uprising that overthrew the government of Sheikh Hasina. While Bangladesh is working tirelessly to support the refugees, Yunus emphasised that the root of the crisis lies in Myanmar. The aid talks in Cox's Bazar come ahead of a United Nations conference on the Rohingya crisis scheduled for September the 30th in New York. We are joined now by Noor Aziza, and she is part of the Rohingya Maya Funyo network, and she joins us live from Jakarta. Thank you very much for joining us, Noor. Could you give us a bit of a rundown of the strain that has been put on Bangladesh since all these refugees have come into the country, and the sort of strain that it does put in on their government, and the job that the government of Bangladesh has done for the world's largest refugee population so far?
We, as the Rohingya community, are extremely grateful for what the government of Bangladesh has done, hosting the largest refugee camp in the world, around 1.2 million Rohingya refugees. I got to visit my community about 2 months ago, and the situation is extremely dire. There are more than 500,000 Rohingya children in the camp that do not have access to any formal education. Due to the global humanitarian funding cuts, we've seen that more than 6,500 learning centres have completely shut. So when I was there, it was completely heartbreaking, entering the camp, seeing children trying to do whatever they can to make sure that they keep busy. But right now, what we are seeing is the ongoing displacement of Rohingya, because the genocide of Rohingya continues. It did not stop in 2017. It has continued, and we've seen more than 120,000 Rohingya refugees flee in the last year and a half alone. And unfortunately, a safe repatriation does not exist today because constant bombing and constant killing is still happening.
Noor, Muhammad Yunus did stress that Bangladesh cannot carry this burden alone. What concrete steps should the international community take now, financially, diplomatically, or militarily, to ease this pressure?
We need a new funding model. We need to explore new funding models where Rohingya refugees don't have to rely on humanitarian aid, because we know that humanitarian aid can decrease. Right now, Rohingya refugees are receiving $12 a month for food rations. And we know that $12 a month is nothing. People are living on 20 cents a day. Therefore, people are making that life-threatening journey towards Indonesia and Malaysia. In the last year and a half alone, UNHCR states that 650 bodies are missing or dead making that sea journey. And so what we also need to do is ensure that we are holding perpetrators accountable. We are holding the military junta and other ethnic armed groups that are also conducting genocide and killings against Rohingya accountable. We, more than anything, want to go back home to our ancestral homeland. I've been very lucky and very privileged. I fled in the 90s and I was living in exile in Malaysia for quite a while, and now I'm an Australian citizen because I seek asylum there. But I'm part of the 1% that live in freedom. There are 3 million Rohingya and only 1% live in freedom. So I guess to say is we want to go back home, but right now it's not safe to do so. But we need to hold perpetrators accountable in order for us to go back home, because we cannot go back to death.
Nor, I want to go back to something you pressed on briefly there, accountability. The root of the crisis, of course, remains in the country of Myanmar. Following the earthquake, we actually saw some diplomatic weight be introduced to the military junta, with him being attending conferences, etc., being recognized by certain leaders around the world. What leverage, if any, does the global community have to hold Myanmar's military accountable for what Yunus calls ethnic cleansing?
We need to place sanctions against the Myanmar military, and we also need to allow for the transactions of banks to be declined. And unfortunately, neighboring countries such as ASEAN countries are allowing for these bank transfers to occur. And we know that the Myanmar military make the most money out of gas and oil, and that's their biggest business. And ASEAN countries have failed Rohingya, and the genocide of Rohingya have continued because we are not holding the military accountable. We are saying, hello, yes, let's do business. Let's keep your money alive. Let's do transactions. So we need to actually put words into action.
Thank you very much, Noor, for joining us. Pleasure to speak to you and get your insight on that topic. We now move on and we move over to Australia, where the lone surviving guest of a lunch where 3 others died after being served food laced with deadly mushrooms told an Australian court that the actions of host and convicted murderer Erin Patterson had left him feeling half alive. Patterson was found guilty last month of luring her mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, to lunch at her home and poisoning them with individual portions of beef Wellington that contained toxic death cap mushrooms. A jury also found the 50-year-old guilty of attempted murder. Heather's husband, who survived the 2023 meal at Erin Patterson's home in Longitha. The seriousness of her offences meant Patterson's sentence could only be life imprisonment, her own barrister said during a pre-sentencing hearing. Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue.